Bum, bum.
Okay, minion.
No, it did kind of sound minion either.
Very minion-y. All right, guys. It's true crime time again.
Woo!
And I'm your host. No, not really.
Co-host.
All I could think of was Hocus Pocus when the Max is over the speaker.
Oh, in the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, all right, guys. It is true crime time again.
Woo! We hope that you've all had a great week so far, and if not, hopefully this will bring a little dark joy to you. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Taylor.
And this is Pure Malice.
But you know what my conversation with Dad today was?
What?
Dad, you remember when he told you he didn't like fishing with me as much?
Yes, because she's a talker.
Okay, once again, I'm not. He starts it.
Oh, I know.
He just doesn't like that I will go back and forth with him.
Mm-hmm.
So today he calls me, and we're talking about fishing next weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he just starts talking crap. Like, just starts talking. He's like, yeah, well, you better be ready because this weekend, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. And so finally I was like, forget it. I said, well, if I had a guide that was worth a crap, I might be able to pull out a 7 or an 8 pounder.
Right.
And he was like, well, I'm the only one that has. And I said, and you're the only one that have seen those fish. Like,
that's about right.
But
too.
it was just funny because I'm like, really? I'm not the one that started. Like, you talk the crap. So I then have to start it.
He said, you may be my favorite fishing partner because you don't talk as much crap. Like, I talk it, I just don't always vocally speak it.
Well, I only vocally speak it when I'm about done with this crap.
Yeah.
And he'll tell you, like, he told you he started this.
Yeah, and I know he does. I mean, trust me.
Dang.
I know.
Listen.
It's funny, though.
Can't help it, man.
Mm-mm.
Anyways.
So this past weekend was Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Like, hurt. Stuck right here.
Didn't even hurt her whole throat, just side of it.
I don't know if there's a vocal cord there.
I have no idea.
I'm not sure, but it hurt. I was louder than I anticipated myself being.
So I, for years, have been wanting to do family costumes. I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. It's fun. And
that's okay. I'm not like the dress up type.
Yeah, I am.
I'm the one that's like least into it.
Yeah. Well, so I have been asking for years and never got any feedback. But Brittany this year, it was her idea. So,
of course,
everyone followed suit and we dressed up. And what did we dress up as?
We were the Sanderson sisters.
Whoop, whoop.
Ryan got to be the blonde.
I was Sarah. Brittany was Winifred.
Which is fitting. And I got to be Mary.
But Taylor's like, I think Taylor's hilarious and Mary's the funny one in the movie. So it was like a little bit fitting in all the personalities. I don't think I'm as dumb as Sarah is in the movie, but that's my opinion. But it was really fun.
Coming from the person who, when I was telling her, like, yeah, Winifred, like, that's pretty fitting of Brittany. And she was like, yeah, well, Mary's the funny one. I'm like, yeah. And then she was like, and, oh, Sarah's the stupid one. She's
dumb.
the dumb one. Okay, it works.
I'm like, it's fine.
Anyways, so then everybody else kind of got into it too.
Yeah.
My little girl got to be Danny, which was great.
So
she was cute. And then my little boy, he was determined he was going to be a Dracula, which actually does fit the family vibes.
Oh, it does.
Because the dad was the vampire, which is the only way we got our dad to dress up as a vampire. So he matched. And he like barely wore it.
He wanted to do it because
Bubs
was being a vampire. So he's like, oh yeah, that's what I'll be. And he finally was like, okay, I guess I'll put on my cape. So he comes walking out and he sits down and he takes like the wing of the cape and he like real fast drapes it over his legs. And then he was like, gosh, I feel so stupid in this. And I said, Dad, it's fun. It's fine.
But Bubba was so excited for it.
He was. And I think that made Dad happy, but he did not keep it on very long.
And Jeff was...
Okay, y'all. So
he was Thackeray Binks, human version.
I thought he killed it.
It was funny. He had a good one.
Wig was awesome. He came walking up and Dad said, Jeff, you look like you just got back from a concert in the 60s. And I was like, oh my gosh, he really does. But it was so good.
Oh, it's funny. Our niece didn't want to be what was assigned to her.
So she was supposed to be Emily Binks and she was not down.
She said it was too...
She said it was ghost girl vibes.
Yeah, she was like, y'all wanted me to be the ghost.
She was not happy with that
And
change.
so last minute, she tried to change to what my husband was supposed to be, but he got called out to work. And so, like, right before we left, she was like, well, who can I be? I really tried to get her to be the master's wife.
Oh, how funny.
She wouldn't put the rollers in her hair.
Oh, that would have been
And I thought that would have been great. It would have been perfect.
That would have been awesome.
And then, so I was like, okay, well, you can be
Allison.
And she just wasn't into it.
And then our grandmother came down.
Yeah, she got to be a cat.
Thanks.
Binks.
I said thanks.
Oh.
I was literally about to say that. Our mom and our mom's mom, Mimi, she came down, and her and my mom dressed as cats. They were Thackeray Binks, the cat version. So it was a lot of fun to do the group costume, I thought.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people got a kick out of it.
Yes, they did, adults and kids alike. We got so many comments, and it was fun.
It was a good Halloween.
Yeah, it was a good time. So today we are covering part 2 of The Last Call Killer. For those of you who need a refresher, in part 1, we went over the brutal discoveries of 4 dismembered men who had been discovered in trash bags, dumped in various locations between Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York. The victims, Peter Anderson, Thomas Mulcahy, Anthony Marrero, and Michael Sakura, were all gay men who had last been seen in or near piano bars in New York City. While investigators knew it was highly likely that these 4 victims had all been killed by the same person, they didn't have much to go off of as far as evidence or leads went. Because of this, cases were going cold after just a few months of investigating. But with the discovery of the 4th body that was clearly linked to the other 3, investigators decided they needed to really get to work on these cases. While doing just that, reporters across the tri-state area started piecing puzzle pieces together in their own investigations.
I totally would have read that, piercing puzzle pieces together.
Piercing?
Yeah. Also, it just makes me so sad that this all happened in piano bar, because piano bars are so much fun.
Piano bars are my favorite.
I love piano bars too.
They're a good time. We've been together. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was a great time. I got kicked out of that one too. I did.
Oh, that's funny.
But favorite piano bar was actually in the Fort Worth area.
Which one? Pete's?
Pete's.
Pete's. That's my favorite one in Austin.
Pete's. I love it. I've only actually been one time.
That's it? Once?
Yeah, but we had so much fun. Anyways, it's one of the best times. It was a good time, though. It was great. All right. So now that we have that nice recap, thank you, Ryan.
Oh, you're welcome.
So anybody working in crime-related fields started noticing that the murder of Michael looked very familiar, and it occurred to more than a few reporters that there was probably a serial killer in the region targeting gay men. So within a few days, investigators responded to rumors about that possibility, but it was clear that they were keeping things real hush-hush at this point. All that they would say is that they were, quote unquote, looking for possible links between the cases. But in the absence of information from the investigators working the cases, local LGBTQ plus activist groups stepped up to the plate, offering assistance to help and educate the public about the violence that queer people were facing every single day. So Matt Foreman told a reporter, "It's a shame that we have to wait until there's a bona fide string of these types of incidents before we get any attention."
Boom.
As the executive director for the Gay and Lesbian Anti-Violence Project, Matt Foreman was pretty well acquainted with the problem of anti-gay violence across the country, and he himself even offered to help the police, which almost choked.
You're okay?
Yeah, I'm good now. Well, I should probably take a drink.
Okay.
We're not sponsored by 7-Up, but if we were, it would be 7-Up Shirley Temple.
Ooh.
That's the one I like. They're good. Anyways. Okay, where did I choke up? Even offered help to the police with questioning members of the gay community who otherwise wouldn't speak to them.
And for good reason at this point in time, you know.
Yeah. Within a week of the discovery of Michael Chakra's body, investigators were more forthcoming with information to the public, but they still remained pretty cautious. So Rockland County DA Kenneth Durbin said, quote, "We are not trying to cause panic, but we don't want to be living in a dream world."
Which is a pretty good way to put it, I guess, you know?
Yeah. So he did confirm details to the public and said that they were undeniable and something to be concerned about, which also is very telling to me because I feel like most of the time when they're trying not to cause panic, they won't be that realistic.
Yeah, true.
So to him, one of the most compelling details was that all of the bodies were left in locations where they were almost certain to be found quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they were concealed, he said, if you dump something in a wooded area, there's a good chance it wouldn't be discovered. But when you throw something in a trash can, there is a great possibility it will.
Mm-hmm.
So the investigators all agreed that the killer was challenging them to find him.
Very, very bold.
Within days, the press dubbed the killer, quote, the last call killer, which was a reference to the fact that almost all the victims had last been seen in a gay bar around closing time.
Closing time.
So, the name gave the press and local activists something to latch onto and refer to as the threat of the killer continued to completely terrify the gay community. In response, groups like the Gay and Lesbian Anti-Violence Project spread out across the city, handing out flyers with tips on how to stay safe without sacrificing a social life. So a lot of groups band together and offered a $30,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest, but unfortunately none of those leads ended up being productive.
It is really nice to see groups come together and try to help to get this killer off of the streets and really just try to make a difference.
Yeah. So while community activists hit the streets to protect their own, law enforcement officials from New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania came together and formed their own task force to address their interstate killer. So using the description of the man seen with Michael Sakra at the Five Oaks Tavern, that sounds like a really nice wine bar.
Yeah.
So with using that description, a sketch of the suspect was finally made.
It's about time.
Mm-hmm. So it circulated to all law enforcement officials in all 3 states. So in New York, detectives visited the St. Vincent Hospital, working the most viable lead that they had. So, if you remember, someone saw Michael at the bar and he had introduced them to the man he was sitting with. And in that short intro, he was told that he was a nurse at St. Vincent Hospital.
What a dummy to let any of that information out. But hey, we're glad he did.
So, unfortunately, after the sketch was passed around to every single staff member at the hospital, and even after key staff members were interviewed, none of them remembered seeing anyone who even slightly resembled the sketch.
Mm-mm.
It seemed that if the killer really was a nurse, he didn't work at St. Vincent. For months, the 18-officer task force pored over the details and evidence in the case, hoping that there might be some detail they originally missed that would break the case. So at this time, the consensus was that they were looking for one man responsible for all 4 homicides. But at the same time, this killer didn't seem to have a lot in common with any of the serial killers they were familiar with. So those serial killers went out of their way to display their victims. New York police detective Ray Pierce said, "There are some killers who kill once and could be sufficient for the rest of their lives. There are others who have a fantasy and attack again and again to refuel that fantasy." As far as Pierce and the other task force agents could tell, the man that they were hunting fell into the second category,
Mm-hmm.
the one that fantasized and needed to be refueled. As it would turn out, things were not so black and white.
Go figure.
Mm-hmm. We're in that
Never
gray
is.
area.
Mm-hmm.
So, after a few months of pursuing leads, sending undercover officers into bars, and interviewing hundreds and hundreds of potential witnesses, the last call killer task force eventually hit a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
So leads and tips from the public started to dry up, and by the end of 1993, the task force disbanded. A year after I was born.
That's right.
So strangely, after the murder of Michael Sakra, the murder simply and inexplicably stopped, it seemed. So now cold, Michael Sakra's case was put back on the shelf along with the Anderson, Mulcahy, and Marrero cases. And investigators moved on to more immediate cases. Detective Jap Rupsha said, "It was always with the codicil that should something come up, we'll be here tomorrow." But it would be nearly a decade before anyone in the NYPD thought about the last call killer again.
It's a long time, you know.
Mm-hmm. And by then, forensic investigation had changed substantially. So, although investigations into all cases had been switched to inactive, they all remained open and were all assigned to detectives in their respective cities and counties who were keeping these cases in the back of their minds as the years passed, hoping to get a break. And that break finally came in the spring of 1999.
Party like it's 1999.
Oh, they are. Especially these investigators.
Definitely.
So when investigators in New Jersey learned about an advance made in forensic science that would allow for the collection of once undetectable fingerprints through the process known as vacuum metal disposition, a VMD. The tech dusts the surface with metallic powder and then follows that by a layer of zinc dust. Okay, I gotta stop myself right here. I'm
Why?
pretty sure I had a fingerprinting kit when I was younger.
Oh, I'm sure that
It was
you
a
did.
CSI one. It was like a legit thing. You could get it at the Discovery store. Yeah, I loved it.
I could totally see that being something that you enjoyed. Yeah.
I don't know if I actually
Did it right?
successfully got one done, but I tried a million times and got that orange dust powder all over. Mom would get so mad. But anyway, so in this process, the tech dusts the surface with metallic powder and then follows that by a layer of zinc dust and then places the item inside of a vacuum chamber. The vacuum process causes the two metals to adhere to any fingerprints left on the surface, no matter how faint they are. And that leaves a distinct print that can then be used as evidence.
How cool is that?
It's pretty cool.
It really is.
I mean, I'm a little disappointed that Mom and Dad didn't get me a DMV machine or a VDM.
Okay.
DMV.
Oh,
Can you tell I'm dyslexic?
It's okay. That's okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm a little mad that they didn't get me a VMD machine. Anyways, all right. So that is pretty cool. So detectives investigating the murder of Anthony Marrero knew that they had a large amount of physical evidence. But when it was tested many years earlier, those tests hadn't produced any viable prints. But that doesn't mean they weren't there.
That's right.
So by 1999, they hoped that by using VMD, they could get a clear set of prints and then send those to other states for analysis. So with over 5 years having gone by, they were also hoping that their suspect had been picked up for another criminal charge, which would have allowed them to collect fingerprints and entered into some sort of state or federal database.
Yep. And really, if you think about it, this is obviously huge and
significant. Yeah. But you also have to bank on that all the other things checked out, right? So like he got away with how many murders, but most of the time people who are serial killers also have like petty crimes.
Right.
So let's just hope this person had some petty stuff going on.
Let's hope. Don't get your hopes too high, though.
Let's find out. So, to the press, Detective Matthew Kuhn told reporters, "Sure, it's a cold case, but we have a lot of new angles to play, and we owe it to the victims' families to try."
Another incident that shows not only good detective work, but that they did still stay on top of it after so many years of it being a cold case.
Now, the problem detectives ran into was that in New Jersey, none of their state or local techs were experienced in the DMV process.
Which makes a difference too.
But they were still determined. It took a few months, but in late 1999, investigators in New Jersey found a team of techs in Toronto, Canada, who had been using the VMD process for years. The trash bags from the Marrero murder were hand-delivered to those technicians to ensure a proper chain of custody. When the bags were delivered back to New Jersey, The text had managed to lift more than 24 previously unseen fingerprints off the bag, as well as several palm prints.
That's a huge deal.
So the new prints were circulated to the surrounding states, but to investigators' disappointment, there was still no matches in any of the databases. So in the months after, Detective Kuhn continued submitting the prints to other law enforcement agencies all over the country. And finally, in 2001,
Woo!
he got a hit from the APHIS database in Maine. So the prints matched those collected from a suspect in a 1973 murder of a University of Maine student. So whoever that was had been a murder suspect before.
Ooh.
According to the evidence, that Detective Kuhn and others had been hunting for a decade was...
Dun, dun, dun.
Richard Rogers.
Oop.
A nurse who had worked at Manhattan's Mount Sinai Hospital and lived on Staten.
Wow.
Obviously, I don't visit New York very much. Lived on Staten Island, just like they thought. They had just had the wrong hospital the whole time.
Frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Exciting at this point, but frustrating for all that other time.
Yes. So, at first glance, nothing about Richard Rogers suggested that he could have been a serial killer. He was born in Plymouth, Massachusetts in June of 1950. And y'all don't come at me for pronouncing Massachusetts that way, because that's just how I pronounce it. So
That's
y'all get
fine.
over it. Anyways, he was the first of 5 children born into a working class family. According to their cousin, he was, quote, normal as could be. I don't think any of our cousins would actually say any of us were normal as can be.
Oh, I agree. Literally out of the entire group, there's not a normal one in the bunch.
I feel like I'm the most normal.
Uh,
Who's the most normal cousin?
I feel like Colby's pretty normal.
No, he's not. He's weird as shit.
He used to be weird as shit. In his adult time, he may still have weird interests, but he's a pretty normal dude. I don't know. Maybe you are the most normal. It depends what your version of normal is, because I think we're all weird. Who is this?
Another cousin.
Oh, get his opinion?
I'm going to try.
All right.
She'll tell us.
What's up, cuz?
Oh, hey. You're currently on Mine and Ryan's podcast.
Hey!
We have a question. And actually, your wife may be the most appropriate for this question.
Is she home?
Is she by you by chance?
Hey, wife.
See, that's pretty normal.
Wife.
I think most people call their wife, like, their names.
I'm like, baby.
I don't say that.
Oh. She's pooping.
Here she is.
Okay.
You would say she's pooping.
Hello?
Hey, okay, we have a random question. You are on speakerphone and you are on our podcast currently that's being recorded.
Good.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so we were talking about one of our murder suspects, like their cousin, quoted them to be normal as could be. Who in our family, out of the cousins, would you say is the most normal? Because me and Ryan have a debate.
Yeah.
Most normal out of you guys.
Including your husband.
Yeah,
I'd say
includes
you,
the-
Taylor.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's all I needed. Once again, you're my favorite.
Yeah, that's what
It's
Taylor
fun.
had
I was
said.
like, I think it's me. And she's like, I think it's Colby. And I was like, no, Colby's weird as shit.
I said his interests are weird sometimes, but I feel like the older he's gotten, he's more and more normal.
Well, I'm with him. I know he's not normal.
All right. That's all we needed. We appreciate you answering.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We love y'all.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, well, Taylor wins.
Oh, I knew I was the most normal. As I'm calling her, putting her on the spot.
I
It's
love
fine.
Toy.
I do too. Anyways, okay. So now that we've determined who's the most normal in our family.
Ugh.
All right. So, in my opinion, you don't describe people that way. It's just weird. Like, there's no way that he was just normal. Like, it makes it more shocking and horrifying.
Well, what
Right?
it does is it just says how good he was at masking
Mhm.
his true self.
And coping with the,
Just masking it, just literally hiding it from everybody else except him.
once again, going back to Dexter.
Mm-hmm.
So, when he was still pretty young, his family moved to Florida, where his father found better paying work than in his previous job as a lobster fisherman.
Lobster. Maine lobster.
Yeah.
Yum.
So, in general, it seemed that his life was pretty much the same as a lot of boys in the 1950s. His father took him fishing, taught him how to hunt, and wanted him to develop a healthy appreciation for the outdoors. They had a good relationship, and things in his home life were good, but things at school weren't nearly as ideal.
There's the issue.
He was a straight-A student who was very neat and tidy, gangly and awkward in appearance, and he was often the target of bullies. They would pick on him for his high-pitched voice and perceived girly nature. He didn't have a lot of friends, and according to Elon Green, he was teased to no end for everything from his voice to the way that he walked. Instead of the typical male after-school activities, he also went to Girl Scouts meetings for his sisters with his mom. Why would his mom do that to him?
Well, and that's exactly my thought here. Why? Why did you do that to him?
And I say that she probably didn't even know it was a deal. So even when his father asked her not to do this, at a certain point, he gave up on trying to get Richard to do manly activities and put his energy into his oldest daughter, who oh God, that's our dad.
Yeah. Move on to the next.
Yeah. Put energy into his oldest daughter, who showed an interest in hunting, and left Richard to do his own thing.
But I mean, you have to also give props to dad for being able to do that, because you can't make your kid be into something just because you're into it.
Yeah. You can't force them.
Mm-hmm.
So as he entered his teen years, his life didn't improve much. His supposedly feminine nature became more pronounced. And although he was not openly gay at the time, he was tormented by his peers as though he was.
That's sad, because bullying really does have a huge effect on kids, especially at that age. I mean, obviously that's a very impressionable age, very important time in their lives, and that's a hard thing to have to deal with. I'm not saying that you should be a serial killer because you get bullied, but
yeah, it just sucks, because I feel like it's just now become a thing for people to actually understand mental health and what things affect your mental health. And I'm not saying that by any means is an excuse for anything at all. But I think having a better understanding at this point, sometimes having too much of an understanding is a bad thing. But if people might have understood what they were doing a little bit more,
Can you tell what Taylor's master degree is in?
Yeah, for real.
Master's. That's a master degree. Can you tell I don't have a degree of any kind?
Anyway, so by his mid-teens, the torment from his classmates became too much to bear, and one afternoon, he stabbed his neighbor with a kitchen knife.
What? Whoa.
It's unclear what led to the stabbing of the young woman, and details are basically non-existent, but the incident did get him placed in a psychiatric institution for a period of time.
It's probably a good thing.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't seem like it helped him much, though.
No, it does not.
Despite this, he managed to graduate high school on time, and in 1968, he enrolled at Florida Southern, which was a small Methodist college just outside of Tampa. His time at Florida Southern was unremarkable, and he graduated in 1972 with a bachelor's degree in French.
Okay.
That's an interesting choice.
It is.
All right. So the peers and roommates that actually remembered him said that he was a quiet but polite young man, didn't make much of an impression. His sophomore year roommate, Donald Coberly, said that he was extremely introverted, very intelligent, but that he would not talk to you unless you spoke to him first. He continued to hide his sexuality while at Florida Southern because it would have attracted the same type of bullying he experienced in his younger years, and possibly worse. So we can't forget that at the time, it's the 1960s, homosexuality was still considered a mental illness by the American Psychiatric Association.
So crazy.
And homosexuality activity was criminalized at the time.
Yep.
So when he was younger, for being gay, he just had to worry about being bullied. But now as an adult, he could be placed in jail for this.
Big difference.
During his time as an undergraduate, there was one student who was openly gay, and according to Elon Green, that student was, quote, reportedly moved into an off-campus apartment by administration for his own safety.
That blows my mind.
So on the afternoon of April 30th, 1973, two cyclists riding along a back road came upon the body of a young man lying at the edge of the woods. About 10 feet from the road, the boy was shirtless, covered in blood, and wrapped in a large sheet of green canvas, like what you may use for a tent.
Mm.
Notice the
tarp?
color?
Yes, I did.
Green. So police found tire marks on the road near the body, and in the boy's pocket, they found a key to the post office box. They took the key and went to the post office, and it was identified to belong to a 22-year-old graduate student, Frederick Spencer. According to the ME, Spencer had been killed by at least 8 blows to the back of the head with a hammer.
Oh, gosh.
Any of which the medical examiner said would have been fatal. It was a shock to the small county of Orono, Maine.
I'm sure it was.
So students and faculty of the university accounted for a large portion of about 9,000 residents in this area. As far as anyone there knew, Fred Spencer was very well liked, a hardworking individual, and got along with pretty much everyone.
That's like a great way to be described.
He was a student at the College of Life Sciences and Agriculture, and he had been handpicked or recruited by the school, according to one advisor, based on his outstanding academic record and future promise as a research scientist.
So he was pretty brilliant.
So he was a very, very bright individual, had a great future ahead of him. Unfortunately, this was his fate. So while the body was being moved to the mortuary for autopsy, investigators went to the house that Fred shared with roommates and other grad students. And after being invited inside by one of Spencer's roommates, investigators took one look around, and it was apparent that they found the scene of the murder. There were dark brown and red stains on the carpet of the stairs, and it looked like someone had tried to clean them up. With the permission of the roommates who were home, they continued to look around the house, and upstairs in the hallway, they found a spongy material on the floor, which had also been discovered wrapped in the canvas with Spencer's body. So the material was scattered lightly in a trail that led to the bedroom of Richard Rogers.
Boom.
So in his bedroom, they also found blood splattered on the wall, the floor, and the ceiling.
Gosh.
They also found bloody fingerprints on the wall beside the door and on the bathroom floor. It was in Roger's bedroom that they found their murder weapon, which was a standard claw hammer.
Ugh.
So the evidence the evidence all pointed to Roger, and he was picked up by police later that day.
Good.
There is some conflict surrounding the nature of Fred and Roger's relationship.
I was waiting for that.
Most of Roger's classmates recall that they were roommates and had a strange relationship, and that there always seemed to be tension between them. But other people said that they were very close and spent a lot of time together. It could be that both statements were actually true.
Yeah.
Either way, investigators couldn't seem to identify any kind of motive for the killing. As far as they knew, neither Richard nor Fred had a history of violence, and there wasn't anything from their past that would suggest that this was possible.
Just the attempted stabbing of his neighbor. They didn't look too hard, I guess.
Obviously a different state, right? So they obviously didn't have any knowledge of Roger being institutionalized for the stabbing of his neighbor, or else they wouldn't have come to that conclusion. At the state police barracks, Richard was brought into an interview room, and it didn't take him long for him to fully confess to this murder. He claimed that the two of them had been in his bedroom when an argument broke out, and he said Fred came at him with the hammer, but that he wrestled the hammer away from Fred and in self-defense hit him on the head several times. So after being hit with the hammer, Spencer was still struggling, so Richard put a plastic bag over his head to, quote, knock him out.
Oh my goodness.
He said that it was simply a matter of self-defense and what he thought was a fight for his life. Investigating officers were pretty skeptical of this being self-defense. Self-defense doesn't often include asphyxiation.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And
put a bag over someone's head and it's self-defense. I don't think so.
No. Furthermore, all of the hits were to the back of Fred's head. But police had done their job, found the killer, so now it was up to the judge and jury as to whether or not he was telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard's attorney, Arrow Payne, had hoped to avoid a trial, and even the judge tried to arrange for a plea agreement, but Richard refused. He refused to accept a plea deal and seemed eager to prove himself in court.
That arrogancy now.
Mm-hmm. So the trial started on October 29th of 1973 in Bangor Superior Court.
Banger.
Oh gosh.
I couldn't help it.
Okay. And we're back.
Okay.
Over the course of several days, the prosecutor called several witnesses to testify to Fred's easygoing nature and strong moral character. He also had the medical examiner go into a great detail about the extent of Spencer's injuries. The prosecutor acknowledged that, sure, it was possible that Roger was telling the truth about the initial self-defense claim, but if it was purely a matter of self-defense, why had Richard placed a bag over the victim's head after he had already been subdued?
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, why had he gone to such great lengths to get rid of the body and try and clean the crime scene rather than report the attack to police right away? So, the prosecution made a promising argument for murder and fully expected a strong response from Payne, Roger's attorney. But when the time came for the defense to present their case, Payne did not have any follow-up questions for any of their witnesses and didn't call any of his own witnesses. Just a few days into the trial, he made a motion to reduce the charges from murder to manslaughter, arguing that the state's evidence didn't support a murder charge, and the judge agreed.
I cannot.
He said it was clear Rogers had been provoked and that the jury could not find that the actions of the defendant exceeded the crime of manslaughter. So at the opening of the trial, the prosecution was confident that he could get a conviction based on the evidence alone. But within less than a week, the confidence was undermined when Rogers took the stand to testify on his own behalf. So despite the very serious charges he was facing, he remained very calm, collective, and even persuasive. His lawyer argued that the bludgeoning of Fred Spencer had been committed, quote, in passion under sudden provocation, and any reasonable man would have reacted the same way because it was so reasonable that any man would have climbed on top of Fred, hit him in the back of the head multiple times, and then strangled him with a plastic bag over his head.
Oh, yeah. Super reasonable.
Richard confirmed this, saying he didn't know what to do, that he very much wanted to go to the police, but he knew that it would look suspicious. So instead, he wrapped Fred's body in a tent and dumped him in the woods.
Mm-mm-mm.
On November 2nd, in 1973, the jury deliberated just under 3 hours before emerging to acquit Richard Rogers of the charges against him.
So crazy.
After the verdict was read, he told a reporter, "I just had no idea how this would turn out. I mean, I'm not guilty, but I am really thankful."
He had to reiterate he was not guilty.
Mm-hmm. And as the jury filed out of the courthouse, he hollered after them, saying, "Thank you very much. I can assure you, you did the right thing. Under the circumstances, not only the evidence, but also his own confession,
Fishing in the dark.
Under the circumstances, not only the evidence, but also his own confession to the murder, everybody was shocked by this outcome. Author Elon Green pointed out none of the newspaper coverage suggested that Payne used the, quote, gay panic defense, but at least one spectator remembered something to that effect. And decades later, many residents who were alive at the time did recall that there was some kind of quote unquote gay angle to the story. Assuming that's true, his acquittal makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in 1973 Maine, it was entirely likely that even the implication that Spencer Frederick made some kind of pass at Rogers would have been viewed as a justifiable defense of Rogers' actions. So, aka
Gay panic.
Mm-hmm. So, as you can see, he got away with murder again and again. So, Rogers was a free man, and after completing his studies at the University of Maine, which it kind of surprised me to hear that he stayed at the college.
Yeah, me too.
After that, he moved to New York and started taking nursing courses at Pace University. He completed his program in 1979, and that's when he took his job at Mount Sinai Hospital, where he was employed up until his arrest in the early 2000s. Discovering that Rogers had at least one murder in the past put their suspect in a new light, and the fingerprints confirmed, if nothing else, that he had been involved in the dismemberment and disposal of at least Anthony Marrero. When they compared the prints from Toronto to the prints in every other case, they were a match. The more investigators dug into Richard's past, the more confident they were that he was the killer. Even without the fingerprint evidence, they thought he was definitely the last call killer.
Mm-hmm.
When they spoke to one of his ex-boyfriends, a British man that he had dated briefly in 1996, investigators were intrigued to learn of an incident where the two men were out to dinner one night and Richard suddenly turned to the man and said, "You should really be careful who you're with because the police are out there looking for a serial killer."
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a weird statement to make.
At the time, the ex thought it was just a gross comment, but in retrospect, the comment took on a whole new meaning.
Oh, I'm sure.
He also said that towards the end of dating Richard, he knew something wasn't quite right. It would have been unusual for Rogers or any serial killer, for that matter, to commit one murder and then stop for 2 decades only to start again. But when they learned more about who he was and his past, the more investigators questioned if he actually had stopped committing acts of violence.
That's a great question.
On a trip to Florida to visit family in 1982, a man named Matthew Hierro disappeared from a Daytona Beach gay bar after last call, and his body was found a few days later along Interstate 4. He had been suffocated and stabbed 6 times in the chest and back. A few days after that, Richard returned to New York. Then in 1986, the remains of a man named Jack Andrews was discovered in multiple garage bags.
Garage.
in multiple garbage bags at a rest stop in Litchfield, Connecticut, just a few hours outside of New York City. He was 100% suspected in both of those deaths, but unfortunately there was never enough evidence to officially connect him to those murders. But there were other crimes that they could connect him to.
Oh, good.
So, for example, in the 1988 assault on a man named Sandy Hero, he met Richard in early July at the GH Club, which was a gay bar in Manhattan. Sandy noticed Richard standing against the bar looking for a place to sit, so Sandy made room for him and they started chatting. Around 8 p.m., Richard suggested that they go back to his apartment, and Sandy said he seemed nice enough and he agreed.
Oh.
However, when they got to Roger's apartment, he immediately disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a drink for Sandy.
Oh, yep, shady.
And as he remembered it, it appeared to be orange juice or something similar. He said, "I was drinking the orange juice and it didn't taste strange, but I remember passing out And as I fell forward, there was a very dark blue rug on the floor.
Oh, that thought, like just processing that memory. Ugh.
He said when he woke up hours later, he had been stripped nude and his wrists and ankles were bound with hospital ID bracelets.
Oh,
He started to scream, and at that point, Rogers rushed over and injected him with a needle, making him lose consciousness for a second time. He then woke up again a few hours later, and at this time, Rogers had him fully dressed and left him outside on the sidewalk a few blocks away.
super, super brave to just let a victim go.
Sandy called a friend who picked him up and took him to the Roosevelt Hospital. A rape kit was performed, but no evidence of sexual assault was found. Sandy reported the assault to the police, and Rogers was arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault, but he waived his rights to a jury trial and instead chose the bench trial where, for whatever reason, he was acquitted and allowed to go free. So once again, he got off scotch-free with no consequences for his disturbing actions. So in a matter of a few weeks, investigators had gone from a fingerprint match in one of the last call killer cases to establishing a thorough and very violent history for their suspect.
See, but this is what we were talking about in part 1. That he never should have been able to get away with all that he got away with. I mean, multiple times now, he just keeps getting let go, let go, let go. It's just a slap on the wrist.
Yep. So Detective Kuhn and investigators from other agencies conferred, and it was decided that the 2 New Jersey cases, Thomas and Anthony Marrero, were the strongest in terms of physical evidence and eyewitnesses from staff and patrons from the townhouse bar. They decided to charge Richard Rogers with both of those murders.
It's about time.
So on May 28th, detectives from NYPD's major case squad started monitoring Richard Rogers and shadowing him as he traveled to and from work.
Woo!
As well as other places. So to everyone involved, this made the most sense. He lived in New York, and even though there were no crime scenes there, they knew that both Anthony and Thomas had been picked up in Manhattan, so that part of the case went to the NYPD. In following Rogers, they hoped that he might lead them to a new location, perhaps where the crimes had taken place, or that they would find additional evidence. But in the 2 days that they surveillanced him, he really just traveled to and from work and other mundane locations. So finally on May 28th, the police commissioner at the time, Bernard Couric, gave the green light to arrest Richard Rogers for the murder of Thomas Mulcahy and Anthony Marrero. Not wanting to tip him off, detectives from the major case squad visited him at work that afternoon and told him they had evidence that he was the victim of credit card fraud, and they needed his assistance in helping them catch this horrible individual. He voluntarily went in with them to the police plaza. Once in the interrogation room, they revealed they were actually there to inform him that they were investigating the murders of Thomas and Anthony.
Sneak attack.
Despite what they knew about his past, the detectives still found it hard to believe that the man sitting in front of them had brutally murdered and dismembered at least 5 people.
And so many people end up saying this stuff,
like over and over and over again. Like it's scary to think of how like typical he was. So unlike a lot of the other violent criminals that they were used to dealing with over the years, Rogers was quiet, polite, and seemed very timid to them. He was cooperative. Makes me wonder if he's like schizophrenic or multiple personality disorder. Anyways,
well, maybe, but
he was cooperative and signed all the forms, indicating that he understood his rights, but he wasn't forthcoming with any useful information. So when New York detectives asked why he thought they were eager to speak with him about the homicides, he didn't show any signs of anxiety or panic and simply suggested it may be due to his assault on Sandy in 1988. Or maybe because of the, quote, death of Frederick Spencer. Noticing he referred to it as the death of Frederick Spencer, not the murder, but the death, they went on to show him pictures of the victims and asked him to verify his whereabouts when the murders were committed. And he seemed for the most part compliant, but told them that, quote, other than recognizing Mr. Sakra, I don't know that I can help you with anything else.
I mean, I feel like that says a lot about him as far as how he was able to remain completely calm, no signs of distress or anxiety, any of that stuff throughout the entire interrogation, knowing that he did all of these things.
Yeah, so their conversation went back and forth for a few more minutes until detectives disclosed the real reason they brought him in.
Ooh.
They told him they had indisputable evidence as well as circumstantial evidence that links him to all 4 of the homicides. So they let him know your palm prints and fingerprints were all over everything, and we were able to pull multiple prints from physical evidence tying you to the murders. When he heard that, he sat straight up in his chair, and 2 investigators, he appeared to finally become guarded.
So this is something he was not expecting because remember that, DNA was very, very new at this time.
Yeah. So the 2 detectives started walking through the details of each murder and then presented their own theories to how they played out and how Rogers could be involved. Rogers listened intently, but never said a word. He just nodded to acknowledge that he was listening. The interrogation went on for several hours, and they went over graphic details of the dismemberment and the murders, hoping he would give in and confess. But by 12:30 that morning, everybody was exhausted, and he provoked his right to a lawyer. So the interrogation had to come to an end.
He finally decided, okay, I feel like they have enough and I need a lawyer.
So as soon as the courts opened the next morning in Ocean County, New Jersey, he was confronted with the first-degree murder of Thomas Mulcahy and Anthony Marrero. But he refused his right to extradition, so he was transferred to Rikers Island and held on a $1 million bail. That's a huge thing back then. Like, that's a lot of money back then.
That's a big, big, big bail. With $1 million bail, it's 10% of that. So it's $100,000 just to get bailed out. And pointing out here, whenever he waived his right to extradition, it's because he did not want to go to New Jersey State Jail. Keep that in mind.
In the meantime, the detective in New York received a warrant to search his apartment, where they found, among other things, carpet fibers consistent with those discovered on Anthony Marrero's body. Heavy-duty garbage bags, like the ones found in all 4 of the locations where the remains were found, and a bottle of Versed.
Oh, wow. For those of you who are not familiar with benzodiazepines, they are a class of medications that calm the brain and nervous system. They're typically used for anxiety, sedation, muscle relaxation, seizure control, medical procedures, and they work by enhancing the effect of GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that essentially slows things down in the brain. Versed is a fast-acting benzodiazepine mainly used in a medical setting, and it's not typically a take-home medication. It's commonly used for sedation before surgery or medical procedures, inducing sleepiness and relaxation, causing short-term amnesia. And if you haven't already guessed, it's often used as a date rape drug.
So, while searching through one of the drawers in his bedroom, they also found a series of Polaroid pictures that looked like they were taken from his bedroom window, which were pictures of shirtless construction workers as they worked on the street outside of his apartment. On each of the photos, he had drawn on what to detectives looked to be stab wounds on the men in the pictures.
That part just really got me like,
yeah, that's crazy.
That's sick.
But the craziest news out of all of this was that his arrest came as an absolute shock to his friends, family, and neighbors. They were all completely taken back with the fact that he could be responsible for killing anyone. One neighbor told a reporter from the New York Times He is a lovely fella who likes antiques and everything that has to do with money.
Oh, he's such a lovely fella.
Ugh. And then another one said Richie would never kill anyone. God, no. All of his neighbors described him as a kind, generous person who went out of his way to help others. One man even said he was the kind of guy you could trust with your ATM card.
I mean, if anything, this seriously makes you question if you can ever really know someone.
Yep. In the days and weeks that followed, as more and more news came out, it became harder to insist that the police had made any mistakes in arresting Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
It ended up taking several years before he went to trial for the murders of Thomas Mulcahy and Anthony Marrero. But in that time, they did offer him a deal, and that deal was that he would plead guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter, and in exchange, he would receive 2 30-year sentences with the possibility of parole after 15 years.
I mean, that's a good deal.
Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but that's a little too generous.
It's very generous, especially knowing like that you have so much evidence against him.
Mm-hmm. The consequences for that, like, to me, it just doesn't fit the crime. Like, you intentionally murdered, stabbed, drugged, did all these things. And I know you can't use past cases, but like for us, knowing the fact of the things that he had done to the one that he injected with drugs, like,
Yeah.
brutal. Like,
Mhm.
there's no telling what these poor men suffered.
Mm-hmm. And obviously it was premeditated.
It wasn't accidental.
No, not at
Like-
all.
Like you said, premeditated, very callous, brutal murders. And on top of that, he then felt the need to dismember them.
Yeah.
That's like a whole different level. Plus, they had tons of evidence, like you said, linking him to the crimes.
Yeah, totally. So why did he get off so easily?
Mm-hmm. So my only thought here is that maybe because DNA evidence was so new at the time, the prosecutors thought they would have a hard time convincing a jury to trust or understand this new science. In order to get that conviction, that's why they offered him such a good deal.
Yeah, it has to be that.
Yeah. So considering that they had 2 very solid cases against him, the deal was a very good one for Rogers. But apparently, Rogers didn't see it that way because he declined the deal. Which, if you recall, he also declined the deal in the case brought against him with Frederick Spencer.
Yep, his arrogance is showing again.
Mm-hmm. So on October 26th of 2005, he went on trial at the Ocean County Municipal Court in Toms River, New Jersey. And in his opening statement, prosecuting attorney William Heisler laid out the case for the jury. In the murder of Thomas, they had 16 fingerprints from 9 different fingers. And in the Anthony Marrero case, they had 2 fingerprints and a palm print in the bag where his head was discovered. They also had a mountain of physical evidence such as carpet fibers, the testimony from various eyewitnesses like the bartenders at the Five Oaks and Townhouse bars, who had actually seen Rogers and the 2 victims the nights they were murdered. Unlike the previous time he was facing a murder charge, he did not testify on his own behalf this time. He actually didn't have much reaction at all, as the prosecution methodically walked the jury through all the evidence. This time, there wasn't much the defense could do other than try to inspire some amount of doubt in the minds of the jury. So they argued that the defense did not have a crime scene for the murders and that they did not have a murder weapon, even though his fingerprints were on the bags. And to that, they presented that his fingerprints could have gotten on the bag some other way, and that simply touching a bag doesn't make you guilty of murder.
Okay, come on.
The probability of that is pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're thinking it's just like coincidental. Like, no, not in the same murders when you have a past history. Like, come on.
And it was more than one bag, multiple bags.
Yeah. So, in the end, the efforts of Rogers' lawyers were unconvincing, and after 2 weeks of graphic and heart-wrenching testimonies presented to the jury, after only 2 hours of deliberation, the jury came back to the courtroom and delivered a guilty verdict on every single charge.
I bet he was absolutely shocked.
When the verdict was read aloud to the court, Rogers showed zero emotion and didn't say one thing. In late January of 2006, Rogers appeared back in the Toms River courtroom where he stood in front of the judge silently as family members and friends read their victim impact statements to the court. Tracy Mulcahy, Thomas's daughter, said he did it because he could and because he wanted to. He destroyed the anchor of our family and many of the dreams that we had for the future.
Your heart goes out to the victim's family. That's a lot to have taken away from you.
Yeah. So once all the victim impact statements were read, the judge sentenced Rogers to 2 life terms to be served consecutively, and he told Rogers to do less would diminish the horror of the offenses you've committed, sir. It's the purpose of this sentence to do everything in my power to assure society that you never walk free again, and that you die in some hole in some prison without having freedom again. And hopefully, society will find some sort of modicum of justice in that, because there's nothing else I can do. And then he dropped his gavel.
Mic drop.
So basically he said, I hope you rot in prison and never get back into society again. The fact that he got off scotch-free after the first murder he committed was a big deal, and his true second chance. But he could not help himself, and after going on to do what he did, after having a second chance, he definitely got what he deserved.
He definitely did. He was a
Despicable human being.
He was a disgusting person.
Yeah. So he was removed from the courtroom after his sentencing and transported to New Jersey State Prison to start serving his sentence, which is kind of comical because he did not want to be extradited there to begin with.
Super comical. It's that little bit of karma coming back.
Did they say why he didn't want to go there so bad? Like,
No.
I wonder what his reason was.
There had to be
There's got to be something.
Yeah, there had to be some big reason.
So in 2008, he appealed his conviction to the Superior Court of New Jersey, who essentially said, get out of here.
Bye.
I tried to use some sort of Boston.
I got that at the end of it.
We need to just record Kat on one of these just for like
Right.
very specific things. Not Bailey.
All her vowels.
Bali.
Yeah, that's exactly where you hear her northern accent is all her vowels.
I tried my best there. All right. So they upheld the lower court's decision. He appealed again in 2014 and once again denied by the court. And still to this day, he is sitting there rotting in some prison. So this entire case was shocking and heartbreaking. These men were trying to figure out their lives, themselves, and trying to be comfortable in their own skin. Then they were taken in a brutal way, left behind loved ones and close friends. Deranged man.
Mm-hmm.
He was only ever convicted on the cases of Anthony Marrero and Thomas Mulcahy. And even though there wasn't enough evidence to link him to other cases, many are certain that he is responsible for the other victims. Some that we know and others that we don't know and may never know.
I definitely think that he's probably got more victims out there, but like you said, we'll never know.
Yep, I agree. So this is where we're going to leave you tonight, today, whatever you're listening to us. Woo.
Make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to download the episodes.
You can also follow us on
Instagram.
Facebook, and TikTok.
Woo!
So make sure you follow and don't miss anything. If you have an interesting piece of information or personal stories about a close call with a killer or even any paranormal experiences, please feel free to email us at
puremalicepodcast@gmail.com.
and make sure to include written instructions whether we can read them on the air and use your real name or not. You can change them if needed. It might be Sally or Sue or Karen. Depends on what the story is. Maybe Bobby. Anyways,
I'm Ryan.
and I'm Taylor.
And remember, it's not just crime.
It's pure
Malice.
malice. See you next week.
Come back, y'all.